Welcome to Long Beach, and welcome to what will surely be one of the longest straights for this series. We get a lot of time in 6th gear here with the TCR, which we're not used to. Before we dive into the lap, I will say I am running a setup on this car. I am not comfortable sharing it yet because I'm not particularly good at that, and I don't want to mess up anyone's drive. I do feel pretty confident that softer springs will help you a lot here. In terms of brake bias, I've been running at 61%. Lower is okay, although turn 1 can get a little scary if you go too low. Anything below 58 just did not feel stable to me. So our first braking marker is the 400 meter board, and we're going to be heavy under braking. Be careful not to run wide into the pit lane. You will get a slowdown penalty. Hard on the brakes, hold the brakes into the apex, down to 3rd gear, and we're going to run down to the fountain. Not a great braking point to measure here. I usually just brake before these little lines in the road, and that's been okay. We're going to wrench the wheel over and do a little bit of landscaping. You can see in the replays there's kind of like a little gutter at the bottom of the fountain. I would keep your tires out of that. They can sort of bump the car around, which you'll lose speed, and you're going to need to carry a lot of momentum through the next 2 corners. For this turn, we're going to take a little bit of curb, not too much because it's a really steep curbing. And the next turn, we're going to actually take a big cut over the curbs. You can take more than you could think without getting a penalty here. Run out wide, get really close to the wall, use all the track. And down to the next turn, just before, not at, but just before the 200 meter board is where I've felt pretty safe. This is another turn where we're going to do a lot of trail braking. I think I was holding the brake all the way to the apex in this one once again. As usual, run out wide. It's really nerve-wracking to do this at a road course, especially Long Beach, but you have to use all the track. If you're missing door mirrors at the end of your lap, you did a good job. Now, this turn catches out a lot of people, and it's easy to see why. It's deceptive in how much it tightens on the exit. You really just sort of have to trust yourself when you're pointing the car at the inside wall here. That's your marker. Look at that. Don't look at the outside. We're going to have a whole video on where you should be looking when you're driving, but do not look at the tire barriers on the outside of the turn. Keep your focus on the apex. And then we have a long run down to the last little complex before the hairpin, which everyone knows if they've ever driven Long Beach. Braking here for me worked maybe between the 3 and the 400 meter boards. It's another turn where we're going to hold the brakes all the way to the apex. Big cut on this one as well. Actually, big cut for the next 3 apexes. Just a little bit of pedal management dancing between brake and throttle here. And then we want to line up for the apex. Try to go as wide as you can because we're gonna try to straighten out the hairpin as best we can. Honestly, I can tell that I'm leaving time on the track in this hairpin. If you can get it down better than me, you'll probably shave a whole second off this time. I have not had a good experience dropping down to 2nd gear here. It might work for you. I think you can probably get away with either one, honestly. Again, we're going to hold the brake for a long time, basically until we can see this chunk of the wall here where there's like a bare tire barrier. That's when we know that it's safe to come out of the brakes and get back into the throttle. Be very, very careful. Getting a good line in this turn makes the difference between you touching the throttle and plowing into the wall and you having a nice run down the straight. And make no mistake, as long as this straight is, the hairpin is make or break for your lap times here. Speaking of lap times, that was a 1:28.7, which isn't super fast. It's about 2 seconds off VRS times. If you're in top split, you're going to be okay with a 1:28.7. If you're in lower splits, you're pretty competitive. Although honestly, I think if you can get the hairpin better than I have, you might be able to find a whole second here. Overall, just keep in mind a lot of heavy braking, a lot of trail braking, a lot of letting the car run wide, even though it doesn't feel great to get that close to the walls. Just accept that you're going to get some 0 and some 1Xs. It's just a nature of street courses. And we'll finish up with the TV version of the lap. Again, like I said, not the fastest time ever, but it's a pretty competitive time. It'll serve you well, at least for people who are sort of in my performance range. Post down in the comments how your lap times are turning out here at Long Beach. If you have any tips or tricks, or if this video helped you at all, or maybe you think it's terrible. Feedback is always welcome. I completely forgot to mention, we do have a new paint job for the TCR, again by Matt Tomoleri. I'll have his info in the description below. I think anytime we add a new car to our stable for a season, we're probably going to give him an email and see what he can do, because he's done a fantastic job so far.